Oisiyud Ches in the Farbringen of the Friedrich Rebbe Shmini Atzer Simchas Torah Tafresh Tzaddik Daled, which is in Likkutei Diburim Chelik Aleph. The Friedrich Rebbe is going to unpack a few psukim in Kapitel Samachei, the way David HaMelech expresses it, and it's really fascinating. I'm first going to read the words, and the Friedrich Rebbe is going to teach it into Yiddish. That's where I'm going to explain it. David Melech Yisrael Zokt, King of Israel, David HaMelech, says the following: L'cha dum yosehila, Elikim b'tzion, and v'lecha yishulam neder. Friedrich Rebbe translates: Dear God Baruch Hu, is dumya aloib. By you, the Eibishter, blessed be He, dumya, silence is a praise. That's the way we praise you. Secondly, second clause, Getlichkeit is in Sion. Godliness finds itself in Sion. And the third part is, as on dear God Baruch Hu, vet nem batzolen dem neder. Surely to you, Eibishter, they will fulfill their promise, or the vow. Is da faran drei inyanim. There were three details brought up in this pasuk. Zwei, welche David HaMelech ratzon boire Baruch Hu, two of which David HaMelech is talking to the Eibishter. Firstly, you should know, like he says to the Eibishter, dein loib is durch dumia. To praise you, we can only do through silence. Secondly, he so to speak commits on behalf of Bnei Yisrael, so to speak. Dear God Baruch Hu, veter neder batzolt werden. To you, Eibishter, the vow will be repaid and fulfilled. And then the third inyan, the jit inyan, is ayidiyah klalis. It's a piece of information. David HaMelech is moidiyah barabim. David HaMelech notifies and proclaims publicly. Al zon bis, and everybody should know. As Getlichkeit is in Sion. The godliness is found in Sion. Good, that's one pasuk. Nach dem, sagt a ferten inyan. There's a fourth inyan in the following pasuk. Shoymei tefillah, odecha kol basar yavoyu. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, he translates the Yiddish, and then I'll translate the English. Do God Baruch Hu, der Shoymei tefillah, is to dir kol basar yavoyu. To you, God Almighty, who is the one that listens to our prayers, to our tefillos, to you, means odecha is ad elecha, all flesh will come. As we actually mentioned in the bracha of Shema Kaleinu and Shemona Esrei, ki ata shomea tefillas kol peh, the Eibishter is referred to as the one that hears the prayers of every mouth. Now, Bashkafa Rishayna, at first glance, is unverständlich der Zusammenbund zwischen die das Gefer Sachen. Can't understand the connection, or where's the thread? What's the sequence between these four different statements? Friya Zakter l'cha dumya tehila. For you, silence is a praise. As Tehilas Hashem is durch dumya. Und nachdem Zakter, afterwards he says something that seems to be the opposite. He says Shemei tefillah dach kol basar yavoyu, which means that was gate of tefillah und tefillah is dach b'dibur. He says the one that listens to our tefillos, to you we all come. Hence, there's a way to praise the Eibishter verbally, not just through silence. So seemingly the first statement in the pasuk Gimmel in Beis contradicts the pasuk Gimmel. On was is the kavanah for l'cha yishulam neder? The statement, the vow will be repaid. Which vow is he talking about? What's the connection to here? Von die das gewerter, by stories, just what we do know, and he's going to try to understand the inferences that are baked into the wording. What these words do indicate, as farana neder yadua meforsim, there is some famous neder. Every yid is obligated to pay in full. On Leute moisprach Yeshulam, kommt es as wie wollt gesagt, as du Gott Baruch Hu kennt sein sicher mit dem Chof. The way David HaMelech says it, you could be sure, Eibishter, that this vow will be repaid. This known vow that every Yid has upon himself. Darfum verstehen. This itself begs to be understood. Was is das for a choiv? Was jeder muss zahlen? Which is this vow or that we owe, that we all have to pay up? Und was David HaMelech sagt mit der Festkeit, and where's the strength, the security that David HaMelech says with such certainty, as wird batzolt werden, that the Eibishter will be repaid. He commits to the Eibishter. Wie einer sagt, as das ist a choiv welche man muss zahlen. It's the type of loan that for sure they need to be paid. See mit Gutenville, whether it's from one's good free will, und vergnügen, and from out of enjoyment he pays back, or on the flip side, Rahman al-San, and alternatively, against one's will, or under Yisurim, through pain and suffering. So that's what we do know about the Slachoi Shulam Neder. Was is das for Aidah close? What type of announcement is what David HaMelech is Moidia as Alakim B'tziyim? Al goes behind some B'tziyim. Now, the Friedrich Rebbe is going to describe, firstly, what we accomplish through saying Tehillim. And I'll preface and say what Friedrich Rebbe is saying is, when we recount the tefillos and the, so to speak, cries of David HaMelech, the way he referred to the Eibishter and the way he prayed to the Eibishter, we start developing a feeling of the Eibishter and of that scenario, and we connect that way to the Eibishter in a very deep way. I mean, obviously, there's a way that it becomes our words, and we mean that this is an expression of ours. But even recounting in the name of David HaMelech, so let's see. Zok the Friedrich Rebbe. Tehillah is Taich Hilul v'Shevach. When we say Tehillah, praise, it means glorifying and praising, enumerating one's, the Eibishter's, so to speak, greatness. Vila Mashal, it's similar to Einer was Leibta Grois in Talmud Chacham. If someone praises a great Talmud Chacham, when they're tzelt, Vi Groiser is in Torah v'Yashamayim, he goes on describing how great he is in Torah and his being God-fearing. Und sagt Teures und Musarwerte, welche hat von ihm gehört, and he repeats various Torah words or thoughts and Musar that he heard from him. Euch midas Toivos, the positive traits like Anava, humility, Emes, truth, being truthful, Chesed, kindness, and Tzedakah, and charity, Vanhagas Toivos, Yerushalayim, Bavas Yisrael, and various other traits or characteristics of Yerushalayim and love for another Yid. So that's it. And now the Friedrich Rebbe is it takes on a life of its own. Friedrich Rebbe is going to start describing what a Chacham would tell his congregation and how the person that heard it is going to retell it. And this will help us understand how the repeating David HaMelech's cries to the Eibishter and feels to the Eibishter impacts us. So Dr. Friedrich Rebbe, this person that heard from the Chacham and wants to describe the Chacham, so he recounts, wie gesagt, Kinder, junge Leute, children, or young adults. Young Leute is usually freshly married. Wenn bei euch wird Chalil kranker Kind, when Chas v'Shalom by any of you, a child becomes sick, convulsed, oder an andere bittere Krank, or a different bitter sickness, illness. Legt dir ein die Welt, you put in your entire world, weint und klagt, one cries, one moans, es ist bitter nebach, it's sad, it's bitter for you. Der was in parentheses, Friedrich Rebbe adds, der was in Himmel Baruch Hu, soll eich und klei soll abhitten von der Sache schlecht. The one that dwells in heaven should ensure that by you and by Klal Yisrael, he should guard us from all such bad, or all bad. Der Vater und Mutter, the father and mother, bei wem es trefft as a Unglück, that such a calamity happens, Rachman al-Islam, reißen die Haar vom Kopf, they're ripping their hair out of their head. Gewaldeven, mit blutige Wegeschreien, they scream with blood streaking cries, von sehr bittere Herzen, from their bitter hearts. Die Lage, their situation, is so schlecht, is so bad as ein Gott Baruch Hu in Himmel darf Rachmanis haben. Only the God in heaven needs to have Rachmanis on them. I feel by gar fremde Menschen, even by foreigners that don't really know them, so geht die Herz zuguckendig, their heart melts just watching Bi Rachmanis on a young nefesh, how sadly a small soul, a blindike kerper, a blossoming little body, wird plutzim charav, all of a sudden starts getting destroyed. Und es convulset und wrangelt sich mit dem Teut. It's convulsating and it's wrangling with and it's struggling with the death. Es ampert sich, it's flopping. Und will leben, aber die bittere Krank schleppt dem Körper in Keverol rein. He's trying to yank himself, he's trying to hold on, but the bitter sickness, illness drags this little body into the caver. Heint, says the Friedrich Rebbe. Now, how great, wie groß darf sein der Weitog, As a tale Vaters und Mutters and Chalila allein die Malachi Amavisen von sehr junge Kinderlach. How crazy and how sad, how scary it is that sometimes it's the father and the mother of these children that they are the angel of death. They're the Malach Hamavis of the young Kinderlach. How so? Midasa ze hitten it up Tarzan Mishpacha, with the fact that they don't keep family purity. Tefillah bismana b'mikveh kshera, to immerse in the appropriate, in the exact time in a kosher mikveh. They allein schleppen on chalila alle basic krenk of their kinderlach. They are sadly dragging and attracting all these bad illnesses. It means angry illnesses. Basic, it's an expression. Over their children. Now this person continues recounting. Erz geretz wegen Avos Yisrael. This wise person spoke about Avos Yisrael. V'tayir ha'id darf zayin begashmus bechlal u'beruchnis befrat. How dear one has to hold another, and in regards, he has to hold another yid, whether it's his physical needs, his gashmis in general, and how much more so, and specifically in ruchnis. As if a toiveton ha'idin darf men sich moise nefesh zayin. One should be ready to give up his life to do a favor for another yid. Nid jalven of them kein Zeit, not to be skimpy over how much time he's investing, on kein tircher, how much effort. Umefrat ben agel arbotzas Torah b'Yisrael. How much more so when we're referring to spreading Torah between Yidden. Vos of them darf men sich moise nefesh zayin mamish. For this, for sure, in the most literal sense, one has to be ready to sacrifice, to throw away his life for another yid. This person recounts with the Talmud Chacham what Geret alt mit kiruv mit vegeverter. He describes how the Talmud Chacham said and expressed all this with soft words. I mean, it's very powerful and very demanding, but the words were soft. Gegeben zu verstehen. He gave it in a way, he presented in a way that's easy to understand for the Eltern from the Kinder, for the parents of the children, the tremendous responsibility that they have to educate their children in the straight path and the upright path of Torah mitzvahs. Was durch them, through this werden their Kinder sein beschützt von schlechter Wegen. Through this, their children will be guarded and kept away from bad ways, like gneva, like steal, like theft, and gneva and gzela. Gzela is in broad daylight, or ritzicha, and killing and murder. Und sie allein will nach 120 Jahren haben richtige Kadeshim. The parents themselves, following 120, will have proper Kadeshim said for them. Und die meisten Teufel von their Kinder, wollen für sie öffnen die Tieren und die Echols von Gan Eden. The positive deeds of their children will ultimately, when they're in the higher spheres, in the higher worlds, it will open all the doors of all the chambers in Gan Eden. The flip side is true. Wenn sie geben it, kein Geherigen Acht auf die Kinder, if they do not give the proper care and caution over the children, so geben sie in frum chadarim, to give them over in frum chadarim, on yeshivas shel Yerushalayim, schools that are God-fearing, dann far glücklichen sie chas v'shalom izich und ide Kinder. They're causing tremendous calamity over side themselves and side their children. And so this is all. This person is recounting what he heard from the Chacham. Says the Friedrich Rabbi, when einer der zählt das Iber, when this person says it over, is a chutz dem was b'shas asipper lepter Iber dieselbe Iberlebungen wie b'shas is gestanden und gehört wie der Talmud Chacham hat das gerät. In addition to the fact that he's now reliving the moments he heard it actually from that Talmud Chacham and his experiences of then, is there Iber der zählen allein, the words itself, the fact that he's recounting and telling it over, wirkt of him, it has an impact on him and impresses upon him in that moment. In that moment, fehlt a gewissen Zugebund zu dem wegen wem erzählt. He feels connected to the Talmud Chacham he's talking about. Weil der erzählen, die Anhages Tavas und Divrei Torah von der Talmud Chacham, wirkt auf dem der Erzähler selbst a Kiruv Gefühl. Telling over Hanagas Tavas and Divrei Torah of a Talmud Chacham, it impacts the one that's describing it, the storyteller, a tremendous closeness a feeling of closeness, and a warme Geheuben zu gebund to them wegen wem erzählt, and it also gives him a tremendous connection to who the Talmud Chacham is talking about. And here, the Friedrich Rebbe ties it back into Sefer Tehillim. Und das is their Sefer Tehillim. This is one of the objectives of Sefer Tehillim. Die Leibgesängen von David HaMelech zu Hashem Yisbarach. These songs that David HaMelech composed to thank and to praise the Eibishter, Arois gesagt in verschiedene Durst und Ausgangwörter, that they're expressed in various thirst and so to speak, Ausgangwörter as words that a person dissipates into the concept. David HaMelech mamash yearns for the Eibishter and mamash klois hanefesh. And the Friedrich Rebbe brings examples. For example, V'tzamel chanafshi kamal chabasari, my soul thirsts to you, and my flesh goes out towards you, Eibishter. Other, the Friedrich brings different types of emotions that are expressed by David HaMelech. Other in Yameliche Hilfsgebeten, in heartfelt cries, where David HaMelech is begging for the Eibishter's help. As like V, for example, in Kapitel Chav Beis, Keli lama zaftani, Eibishter, why have you forsaken me? Hoishi Elikim, save me, Eibishter. Ki bo mayim ad nafesh, for water has reached till where my soul can handle. Other, farbita te vegestrain, or just cries of pain upon seeing, for example, Vi bo goyim nachlasecha, timu was heichal kachecha, how goyim, Gentiles have entered your land, your inheritance, and timus heichal kachecha, they have defiled your holy and your sanctified chambers. Alamcha yarimu soid, they're gathering together to discuss plans against your nation. And they'll, so to speak, take counsel about what's the most precious to you, what's hidden by you, Am Yisrael. Amru, they said, let's go and erase them as a nation. And the name Yisrael will be erased forever. So these are examples of David HaMelech. You connect with his emotion. Other Hoffnungsgefühlen, or sometimes in Tehillim you'll find feelings of hope. He'll remember his kindness and his trust in Bnei Yisrael. Or he remembers the fact that they trust him. Am Yisrael has bitachon. Ro kol asiyartis Yeshuas Elokeinu. Let all the nations of all corners of the earth see the salvation that our God brings upon us. Und das ist der Sinn von der Wort Tehillah. Tying it back, this is what we're referring to when we say that we said Tehillah, praise of the Eibishter, where die Leibun der Zählung, welche verbindet der Leiber, oder der Zähler mit dem wegen, wem leibt. It connects David HaMelech, obviously, but the person recounting and saying Tehillim, remembering what David HaMelech spoke to the Eibishter, it connects us to the Eibishter in the same way David HaMelech connected to him. That's what Tehillah, that's the real praise of Tehillah. As Bashar says, Zakti Loiverter, while he's saying these words of praise, filter sich in a nonter batziung mit dem wegen wem loibt. At the time that he's praising, he feels himself a very close and a connection to the one he's praising. As we can see tangibly, when someone in worldly matters, someone tells over, he happened to see the tremendous honor and glory that the nation bestowed upon their leader, their king. He happened to be not his country. He happened to be in a different country. He was in Buckingham Palace. In einem von dem Feiertag, welche werden gefeiert in jener Medina, in one of the celebration days that are celebrated in that country. Und erzählt das mit alle Pratim. He tells us over how the type of honor and the type of glory that they spent on honoring this king, this leader. So when he says it over with all the details, the Reichkeit, the Reichkeit, the Reichkeit, and the Schenkeit, how beautiful it was, and the richness of it. When erzählt das mit alle Pratim, he describes it with all the details. Und die größte Menschen, welche in jenem Tag gesehen, and the type of the field marshal, all the great people he saw on that day being offering this honor to the leader. is b'shasar erzählt, in the moment that he's describing this, steht in a gehobenem Stimmungsgefühl. He finds himself in a very high emotional state. Was mit dem allein geht raus von sein wochendiger Leben. This itself, he so to speak detaches, leaves his mundane and weekly life, und steht hecher on edler, and he stands above and in a much more refined state. He's there, and so to speak, his spirit is much more revealed. Therefore, says the Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, for this exact reason, ver tefillah angerufen b'shem sulam. Davening is called a ladder. Via state, as it says, that the ladder is implanted in the earth, but it's, so to speak, the top of the ladder reaches the heavens. When a Yid starts describing the way David HaMelech described the Eibishter, that raises him up and connects him with the Eibishter in a way that the David HaMelech connected. He has that feeling and that pull. Tefillah is der sulam v'chafarbind der mispalel im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It connects the person, the Yid davening, with the Eibishter. Was durch die Shiris v'sishbachas, through these songs and praises shebetfillah, vert is kashos hamispalel im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Good. So now that we understand what Tehillah is, and we understand this is the whole Tehillim, now he's reaching, what does it mean when we say L'chod Dum Yosehillah? That there's a level in the Eibishter that for that level to connect with is only through silence. It doesn't help David HaMelech's words, so to speak. David HaMelech is telling us this. L'chod Dum Yosehillah is L'cho, is Atzmus Ein Sof, in the essence of the Eibishter. Das heißt, dass der Verbund mit Atzmus Ein Sof, that is durch Dumia. Davon verstehen, was ist das als solches Dumia? What does it mean when we say silence is the praise? How does that look? Was hat bekoyach, and it's not just because we're at a loss of words. No, in an active and in a positive sense. That type of silence can connect us to Atzmus. Was hat bekoyach zu verbinden dem Adam mit Atzmus Ein Sof? So now the Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is going to give us a fascinating overview of what happens when a person learns. At the beginning, there's a cognitive process going on for him to understand the seichel. But when he fully grasps what he understands and what he doesn't understand, all of a sudden he develops a sense, a feel, an intuition, I would call it, of where this svara will not play out. And it has the power of clarity as if he can explain it, even though he can't articulate it. That silence is a positive. It's not a negative. It's not because he's at a loss now and he got to the point where he doesn't understand anymore. No, he passed the limits of what can be spelled out, and at this point he can only be grasped through silence and that intuition. Let's see it inside. A masag amiti, someone that truthfully grasps a concept, such a person is nitkin mut'eh. We're not talking about a person that lives in fantasy world, convinces himself that he sees things. He doesn't trick himself, he doesn't kid himself. Das is der gather from a balasaga. This defines a person that's a balasaga. He knows what he understood, and he's even comfortable telling you this detail I don't understand. This is beyond me. Was is nitkin muta. And he says, B'chlal, bal hasaga, someone that grasps something, by definition, he's not a phony. He's going to describe what he understands. Jeder Sach is by him klar und deutlich. Everything by him is clear and spelled out. By the Bal HaSagas voran zwei Kavim, there are two, so to speak, tracks, lines. Das sind zwei Hasaga-Strichen. There are two, so to speak, streaks of Hasaga, of grasping, of understanding. One of them is understanding, Verstand. Other Sach kann man nicht verstehen. Or, this I cannot understand. Was die beide Kavim sind bei ihm Hasaga Gemara. He has a very strong and firm grip over both of them. What he does understand and what is beyond his capacity to understand. He may even understand why he can't understand it. That is part of his clarity. That's a positive. Kashem wie in dem was versteht, ja, is by him der Davar Musa klar, just as in what he does understand, the concept that he grasps is very clear. Weiß gut was versteht. He knows well what he understands. Kimoikin is in there under account. In the same vein, the other track as das kann man nicht verstehen, euch klar, as weiß, was man kann nicht verstehen. What he can't understand is also very clear, that this cannot be understood. Und lefamim is the seich mit hatam sichli. Sometimes it can be also with reasoning. For was man kann das nicht verstehen. Albeit, the fact is, he has clarity also in what he doesn't understand. Euch versteht the Baal HaSaga says now we're taking a step further. A Baal HaSaga also understands, as das is versteht, yeah, what you do understand. He's das noch nicht verstanden. That's not really, you didn't reach the essence of the understanding. Nor das is mehr nicht wie ein Mabel zum Verstand. It's just an introduction to actually understanding. Let me say it maybe in my own words. Seichel will help a person understand something so well just until the point where he feels like he got it. That feeling of he got it is not seichel anymore. At that point, it's clarity, it's vision. It's a different type of grasp. It's an emotion, but it's not an emotion that's mindless. It's emotion that comes beyond seichel. And to that extent, and to that degree, the seichel, the intellect that he was working on, the meditating before he did, was just an introduction to reach that clarity that he gets afterwards. Doctor, das heißt, as hasagas achiyuv, the positive understandings and big ideas that he's able to hold on to, is a movitz hasagas hashlila. It's an introduction to the feeling that he got it, to the extent that he's able to, based on intuition, he has a feel of what he cannot understand. It's an introduction to the ideas hasagas hashlila, to the negative, so to speak, understanding of what he doesn't. Das heißt, says the Friedrich is going very deep here. As halbasha von seichel bringt zu hafshata von seichel. When his intellect is invested and enclosed in a concept, that's just an introduction for his intellect to be ready to, so to speak, become more abstract, and so to speak, even let go of what he understood and understand beyond his understanding. It's called halbasha von seichel, clothing his intellect in a concept, bring to, that leads to hafshata von seichel, where it's abstract. Fran noch a Sach, was a Masse can verstehen. There's another concept that a Masse can understand. Das ist, dass man darf weglegen der Verstand, aber herrscher vom Verstand. He has another very strong principle that every Baal HaSaga knows, that you have to be able to put your seichel on the side when dealing with something that's beyond understanding. This is much more of a honor that a person gives to higher than seichel. The says gefil. It means he honors this their hair. Just to say this and to give this some more words. In the time of the Baal Shem Tov, Bechlal by Chassidim, a oivid, even a big maskil, someone that knew tremendous amount of Chassidus and knew, the elements of Kabbalah, he knew how to unpack it and understand it in a way of Chabad and connect with it to Avodah Tefillah. To a simple oivid, when he said a vart, the maskil was machabed. Why? Because he's grasping in a very powerful, truthful way. It's not just seichel. It's not just a discussion and for argument's sake going on. He's taka holding on. So they had this respect. The says gefil to this emotion. But their gefil from haskala is herche von haskala. The feel, the intuition of intellect is higher than the whole intellectual process that leads up to it. It's a whole different caliber. Haskala, says the Friedrich Rebbe, kumt up in erklärung. Intellect can come down into explanations. Aber Gefühl, this feel, this sense, can sein, as only Taben can Megelchet das zu erklären. It's very possible that he has no way to explain it. Und wenn man fragt him Akasha in them, when he's asked a question about it, hat nicht converted mit welcher zu feiern from the Kasha. He may have no way to answer to rebuff the refutation, to knock off a Kasha. Aber der Gefühl sagt ihm, as die Sache is as still, that clear sense tells him this is the truth. and he's ready to sign off on that, even though he can't explain it. Thus haste, as Askal kommt up, this intellectual pursuit comes down in Werter when his Makabel Ahelem Behester. That the intellect, the way it comes into explanations, it can handle, can handle is the wrong word, it accepts questions. You're able to refute it, to knock it off, to disagree, etc., to prove him wrong. Was kol kushya is doch Ahelem Behester. Any question is a, so to speak, it's a concealment, and it's a concealment. Aber hergish, this sense and this feel, was das is gefühl kommt nicht herab in kein Arichos Dvarim. First of all, it cannot be spelled out in words. You can't, even if you'll spend time and invest words, it's not going to do justice. Und es nicht mekabel auf sich al atzma kein Helm behester. There's no question that can weaken this sense. The far as a raya, a chizuk for a davar muskel. A raya, proof that's brought, that only helps for something that's understood. When a kushi is machlish, and when you have a question on it, it weakens your grip over something. But that's only when it comes through seichel. Aber in hergish, in this sense, in hergish, Vuer filled the muskel. Once he feels this, the concept is a rayin it moisif. Any proof that you add doesn't really add, doesn't make the sense stronger. When a kushin it machlish, a question doesn't make it weaker. Azagefil, Friedrich Rebbe is going to demonstrate this with a Gemara in Beitza. Azagefil gefinnen mir in the Gemara Beitza Davav Amad The Rav had gesagt a halacha as a froyach welches geboren on Yom Tiv is also machmas muktzah. That a chick that's born on Yom Tiv is also due to muktzah. Yet the halacha is a bechin from a seichel and svara. Now, in general, any halacha pasuk in the Gemara is the sachakol of a certain understanding of svara. Habrim zayne talmidim, naturally his talmidim Rav Kana and Rav Asi gefragt, they asked him, was ist der Unterschied zwischen a Froich, was geboren in Yom Tiv, und a Egel, was ist geboren auf Yom Tiv? Why, by a chick that's born on Yom Tiv, you're not allowed to much inkin a Egel, a calf that's born? Hat er geantwortet? He answered them. If you look at the Gemara, you'll see he answered because it's niter agav imay, that the mother itself becomes mutter, it also becomes mutter. Haben sie wieder gefragt, aber was ist der Chiluk zwischen a Egel? Welches geboren von einer Behema, was mit Schchitte wird sie nicht kosher. What happens if it's coming from a Behema that the Schchitte is not matter the mother? But Rav geschwiegen. He was silent. Gar nicht geantwortet. You would think that he's retracting his psak. Because asked him a strong question. If you can't explain the difference between the Behema and the Freya, so then it should have the same thing. Aber from seiner Achlata, from what you see, from his ruling afterwards, is the halacha hat kein charata nit gehat. He didn't have. There was zero regrets for his psak halacha. The Gemara klärt in them. The Gemara discusses it. For was the Rabbi nit geantwortet? Of the zweite Frage von seiner Talmidim, why Taka didn't respond to the second question? So the Friedrich Rebbe is now going to share with us his experience. Dr. Friedrich Rebbe, good Fernanda Kleibendick. Them going from the svaras and the shaila, when one unpacks properly the whole process of the svaras in the question, Zenmir, one can notice, as by Ravin is the svara from a froyach shenolad b'yam to given a gefil svara. The svara that he introduced was not a seichel svara, it was a svara that came from beyond seichel. It was what we called a sense, an intuition. He had that level of clarity that comes after seichel. And therefore, and he said, it wasn't only an intellectual understanding that led him to this ruling. In a gefil svar as oichin ane prana erklärung seichel, says the Friedrich Rebbe, note, in a hergish, in this emotional clarity that a person gets about that, it also started off with explanations. There is a seichel behind it. Therefore, if the erste Frage Von Rav Kahana and Rav Asi hat geantwortet. That's why in the first question he was able to answer. Und erklärt the chiluk, and he explained the difference von a Freiach schnell Yom Tov, und a Egel schnell Yom Tov, the difference between the calf that was born on Yom Tov, and the Freiach schnell Yom Tov, why the calf is mutter, and the Freiach, the chick, is not. As Freiach is muktzah, Freiach is considered muktzah, and a Egel is not muktzah. Aber in the zweite Frage, once they reach the second question, was the chiluk zwischen say is not a gefühl svara. At that point, it wasn't anymore about the intellectual svara. It was emotional clarity that he had at that point. Da hat Rav nicht gekannt erfren. He couldn't answer. Weil svara sichlis kommt herab in Erklärung. Because the svara sichlis in an intellectual concept, you can bring down into explanations, mit Wörter, with words. Aber a gefühl svara kann nicht herab kommen in Erklärung. Das heißt, sums the Friedrich Rebbe up. As wieviel man kann das nicht erklären, man soll das nicht erklären, as much as you'll explain it, wird der Gefühl nicht ausgeschöpft. You're not doing justice, you're not fully drawing. Ausgeschöpft means bringing out the idea. Der Gefühl is noch alt mehr. The feeling is still stronger than the way it was explained in words. Und wie man hat früher gerät, as we explained earlier, auf a seichel svara can a kashi sein as tira. Ask a strong question in a seichel svara, it can knock it off. Refute your claim. Aber auf gefühl svara is a kashi can stira nicht. Of that emotional clarity, that sense, that intuition that comes afterwards, the svara, the question doesn't really undo anything.